Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our weekly office hours. My name is George Soto, one of the co-founders here at AssetMule, joined by my co-founder and CEO Justin Dorfman, and our special guest today, Zach Messler, who is going to give us a master class on getting clear on your messaging for the folks out there who are tuning in on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you so much. If you're a repeat offender, we appreciate it. If you're new, really appreciate you taking the time to learn about us. Real quick, for the folks out there who have any questions, comments, feedback, you might know the drill if you've been here before. Go ahead and comment on the comment wall, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn. Give your feedback, your questions. We'll go ahead and address those throughout today's session. Either way, we'll leave some time at the end for that Q&A. But of course, let's make it conversational, right? So that's always fun. But real quick, Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, just for the folks out there who are new to you, and then we can dive into really your framework around achieving this messaging clarity.
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, George, Justin, thanks so much for having me. You might be able to tell, I am quite literally almost, well, not literally, all the jumping out of my skin. I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome. So I'm Zach Messler. I spent 20 years in product marketing for enterprise tech, despite being about as technical as a crayon. And it was actually about 7 years ago, I decided to jump from the corporate train, and I started my own business. So now I work with founders, product marketers, teams on what to say and how to say it to attract more buyers and sell more stuff. At the core of that is message clarity. And message clarity is so much more than people think. It's so much more than most of the experts out there will tell you. Most messaging experts will say, oh, you have to be clear with your message. Get it simple. Some people say, oh, we have to dumb it down, or we have to stay concise, no jargon, all of this stuff. And that's all true. But that's the window dressing. That's the stuff towards the end. True message clarity isn't about being understood. It's about being perfectly understood. And that perfect understanding goes both ways, right? It's your audience, your buyers understanding what you're trying to say and what you're saying. And it's also you and your understanding of your buyers, their needs, their challenges and problems, their headspace, their emotions. If you capture message clarity the right way, you're doing what all product marketers strive to do, which is connecting product with audience. So through necessity, really, because again, I'm not technical and I started out in tech, as a product marketer, you have to be the expert in the product. You have to be the expert in the audience, because again, your job's to connect the two. And so I needed a way for myself to understand the tech deeply enough to become an expert in what I was marketing and what my sales pros were selling. So I leaned in on ancient Greek philosophy. I was a philosophy major back in the day, to the dismay of my mom. I think she wanted me to be like a doctor, a lawyer, who knows. And it came back to help me. So I leaned in on ancient Greek philosophy. This is loosely based on Aristotle. So Aristotle talked about essence, and he said essence, the ancient Greek is to TNNI, which means that it was to be. And so how do I get to the essence of something? How do I define the thing that makes this thing be what it is, be the thing that makes the thing be the thing? This is philosophy, man. It's like, this is all foundational stuff. So I came up with these 3 big rock questions. And big rock questions, the way I define them, big rock questions are those questions that are so simple and so big, they're really difficult to answer. Think like, what's the meaning of life type level. So those 3 questions that I leaned in on for myself were, what is it? So this thing that we're selling, this feature that I have to understand, this service, what is it? what does it do, and why does it matter? Not why does it matter to me, not why does it matter to us, why does it matter to the people it should matter to? And that answer may change. But I found when I got ridiculously simple and tried to get to the core of things, I could create messaging that just I understood stuff immediately. My audience understood what I was saying. It forces you to use that plain, simple language. So you don't even have to think about, oh, is this simple enough? Because it is. Excuse me. Perils of live and a little bit of allergies going on. Excuse me. Yeah, so it forces you to be simple. You know, when I'm talking about what is it, we start with one word. What is this thing? So if I said AssetMule, if I said to you, to either of you, what's AssetMule? What is it?
One word, right? We just have
you don't
only
have
one.
to start with one word, but just tell me, what is it? What's your pitch right now? What is AssetMule?
Yeah.
Not just what is it?
So I usually describe it as a sales enablement platform. That's kind of I think of these things a lot like peeling back the onion, right? And that's the first sort of layer of the onion that I would sort of I guess describe it as.
Yeah.
So platform, then the core of what you're selling is a platform. That's great. That's great.
Well, you know what's interesting, Zach, is because it depends on who I'm speaking to.
Sure. Yeah.
But generally, I use like the analogy of Canva. I go, because it's easy, I think, for people to relate to that. So I'll say, hey, it's like Canva, but for creating sales assets, right? That you would use within a one-to-one sales conversation. And of course, that is generally I'm speaking to someone that is in the sales or marketing role that could speak to that. If I'm talking to my mom or so, it's a little different.
And same thing goes with
the tough thing with going down that route, and I totally get that. You want people to make that connection really quick. The tough thing about going down that route is down the road, differentiating then becomes really difficult. What happens if Canva decides they want to come out with a sales enablement tool? You guys are hosed,
Yep.
If that's what you're saying all the time. So it doesn't stop there, though. If I said to you, what is it? And I say, oh, it's a sales enablement platform, that doesn't tell me the story. Right. So this is what I mean when I say there are more questions that come up that you have to answer to be able to answer these questions well. It's all based, too, on I've done a lot of work on this in the last year or so. We've gone deeper. So I have something called the hierarchy of clarity. And I have a blog on my website about it if people want to read about it. But the hierarchy of clarity, it's kind of my own take on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it starts with clarity of product or clarity of offer. Before we're selling anything, we have to understand what it is that we're selling. So it always starts with product, which I'm not saying you go to market that way. I'm certainly audience first, but it's important to have that baseline. Clarity of product. Next is clarity of audience. So who are they? Who are we selling to? What sets them apart? What makes them special? Why are we addressing this audience? Then clarity of problem. Anything that anyone buys solves a problem, addresses a problem. Anything. And I've had pushback on this before. Like I had one guy say, well, what about a cheesesteak? A cheesesteak doesn't solve a problem for me. I just want a cheesesteak. Well, yeah, that's the problem. You don't have a cheesesteak and you want a cheesesteak. So, or another one I've gotten, like, what about a Ferrari? I don't need a Ferrari to get from here to there. And the answer to that, the problem there is you don't feel cool enough. If you don't feel cool enough, and so you buy the Ferrari so you can feel ultimately cool. So anything, it's important for people to recognize this. I think most people deep down do, but then you have founders and entrepreneurs that never talk about hunger. No kidding, Eve. You have people out there, founders, entrepreneurs, who are always just leading with product or leading with features or leading with their stuff. Well, nobody gives a shit about that stuff until they do. So, and that's why it's important to recognize that what we have solves a problem. Like AssetMule, what's the problem that AssetMule addresses?
Yeah. So the problem that we solve is this tension that exists between product marketers and salespeople, where salespeople want personalized sales assets or different sales assets that are available to them in the moment when they need them. And product marketers are usually under-resourced and unable to deliver them at the speed that sales needs them. So we're sort of sitting in between to enable the salesperson to be able to create those assets on the fly without the product marketer having to stay up 24/7, right? Working on those assets.
I want you to go back and listen to what you just said, because there's some gold in there too, just different words that you can pull out. I've already forgotten them now, but I'll listen to it too. I'll let you know what I heard. But I think you have multiple problems that you're addressing.
Yeah.
It's for the product marketer, and I've been in that seat. It's the problem of, make me a freaking data sheet. We got to close this deal. Make me a data sheet. You become the sales bitch sometimes if you let yourself. And for a salesperson, it's, I need an asset quick. And we have these core assets. We have these core data sheets or case studies or whatever, but it doesn't really fit the use case I'm talking about. How can I get something quick that's going to piss off my marketing team? And then there's the problem of the leaders, the CMO, the CRO, the VP of sales, the head of sales, where they want, if they're worth their weight, they want to have a collegial relationship. I don't think anybody really wants sales and marketing to be like this. Kind of dumb. I've seen it a lot. But they want a collegial relationship. That's a thing that you're solving too. Not to turn this into an AssetMule commercial or anything.
No, but it's good to even think about it, through this lens. Like, I was going to ask you, why do you think founders struggle with this, right? Because when you're laying it out, it sounds obvious in some ways, right? It's like, what is it? What does it do? Why does it matter, right? And but I think it's very rare that founders sit down and actually map that out. So I was going to ask you, and even when you asked me, I'm like going in my head, how should I position it? How do I make it clear? All these things, right? So why do you think we struggle with this? As most founders, I would say, I'm not tooting my own horn, but if you're going out there and you're building a new product and trying to solve a problem and all these things, you're probably a pretty capable person, right? Or but we struggle with some of these simple things. Why do you think that is?
Well, one, you're too close. One, you're too close. And this is for every founder. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I feel like I'm pretty terrible at describing my own value, which is crazy. I shouldn't be. I'm too close. Too close. We all have biases that we have to lose. And the first step is recognizing that, I have a bias. I think my product is the greatest thing ever. And I think it's the most brilliant, needed thing ever. That's a bias. It's a major bias. You think everybody should want what you're selling. And this goes for pretty much every founder I've ever met, and every entrepreneur too, every real entrepreneur who has something that they have something they believe is special that people are going to want, because otherwise they wouldn't go out and try and sell it. So you're too close. Two, I think just the way, this is just a theory, but I think just the way we're all wired these days, people don't look for the simplest path. We think that complex, and maybe this is rooted and you don't think it's subconscious. We think that things that work have to be difficult, or not even have to be difficult, because doing what I'm talking about can be really difficult, but can't be simple. Tim Ferriss, I'm a huge fan of Tim Ferriss going way back. Probably one of the reasons why I ended up going down this path and doing what I'm doing. But he had something he said for a while about just processes, but you could apply this to messaging too. What would this look like if it were simple?
Yeah.
What would it look like if it were simple? But we all just get too close. Look, this framework, the clarity questions that I created, I used them for 20 years before I felt comfortable sharing them because I thought it was too simple and I didn't want to seem stupid. I thought it was too obvious. It's not. It's not obvious at all. When I ask a question, so I run something called a message clarity workshop for founders, sometimes teams, occasionally product marketers. And what we're doing in that workshop is we're answering those questions together. We're getting crystal clear with what we're selling, who we're selling it to, and we're creating that narrative that connects the two. In that, the first thing that I do when I'm starting out, we start with what is it? I'll say, hey, George, AssetMule, what is it? Don't worry about how you sound. I don't care. Don't try to sound cool. I just want to hear from you, the founder. What is it? And then I shut up. It is, I don't record I don't keep track of who says what or what, but there is it's a ridiculous percentage of founders and marketers too, that don't answer the question. What is it? You did. It's a sales enablement platform. I kind of pushed you that way a little bit, and I don't do that in the workshop. Almost like so many people go, oh, well, it's for AssetMule, for example. They'd say, oh, it's enabling sales with assets. No, that's what it does. Mm-hmm. What is it? I don't know.
Yep.
Because these are big rock questions.
But let me ask you one question I have on this that I've sort of maybe fought with and gone back and forth throughout my career is, should you tie yourself to an existing category or should you try and establish your own category, right? And I know there's a lot of debate out there about this.
That's a loaded question. And really, it just depends. Well, at least my opinion. It just depends. I mean, if you have something that is truly different, and there's where the bias comes in, right? I don't mean you think it's different. I mean, it's clear, it's obvious. This is different. Our people are buying it and then they're using it and you're hearing all the time, I've never seen anything like this, right? I'd want a little evidence first. There are so many, otherwise you're convoluted. You're putting a message out there that's not clear because you're saying you're one thing when everybody else is putting you in this box. That's another thing about saying you're you're like Canva, but you're putting yourself in that box of Canva, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. You know what everybody I think is doing right now to answer that question? Because I've gone back and forth, as I said, and I tend to lean now towards actually making my product part of an existing category so that it's recognizable at first glance to somebody, or like they know what box we live in, like you said. Yeah. But then this is how we're different, right? And this is what we bring unique, but how we uniquely approach the problem. But I think a lot of people today are slapping AI powered in front of what they do in order to sort of say, we're sales enablement, but we're AI powered. We're AI powered sales enablement, right? And like, I'm just curious to get your take on what you're seeing and what you feel about that.
It's so funny. It's so funny. When you get this much gray hair, you start seeing things again and again and again. And I've seen this movie before. I've seen it before. It wasn't AI, but there's always something AI powered. We got to put AI. We got to get AI in here. I have a client right now, a tech client, who is adamant about getting AI in the message. And I agree with him. However, just slapping AI powered on the front, AI now, if you're in tech and you don't have AI incorporated in some way into your product, well, you're way behind. And the market will catch up if it's not already there, where AI is just, of course it has AI. It's table stakes. You have to have this. So, for a while like 3 weeks ago, not really, but, like 6 months ago, a year and a half ago, when it was truly, holy crap, look at this. It's new. It's cool. Excuse me. That's the time to have AI powered in front of it, because now we're a first mover. We're using this. We're taking advantage of this. You can use this technology in a way that's going to benefit you by using this product. That made sense. Today, AI powered in front of everything. I'd pop it on a product page on the site, and if you have to do it, I did this with my client. We put a little asterisk there and said, yeah, we have AI too.
Nice.
Zach, I had a question about this because I've thought a lot about this, have consulted some of my, I advise a couple companies do some consulting. And one thing that I'm reminded of is back I'm going to say this about 21 years ago. And I'm a little older than I look, but anyways. And I remember I worked at a startup that's first product, and kind of they found product market and fit and so on, selling a on-prem software solution, right? So I remember, at that time I was post-sales, Justin, isn't that crazy? I was a post-sales guy. So I'd go in, train the staff how to use it, et cetera, because everything was in person, right? And then I remember we had this special project that was our product, but in something that was the web-based version, right? And so we'd go to the customers and, we'd say, hey, by the way, we have this like web-based thing. So I don't have to come in and fix stuff on servers. That dude who's sitting in the back in the dark room doesn't exist anymore. It's all in online on the internet. And people were freaking out. They were like, what? They just like, no, we can't have our data. Where is that? It's like, no, this is the same infrastructure that the banks that were rolling out, online portals and everything. They're like, no. Eventually, they started to move into it, right? Because everybody understood. Well, once we were like, well, look, this is half the cost, right? And all these other reasons, right? So anyways, so then we started to market the product as it was practice management software in the healthcare space, right? So it was like web-based practice management software, right? Because at the time, that was it. And then eventually the cloud as a terminology came out. And then eventually that product, the messaging no longer had web-based or cloud, because it was
That's exactly it.
Right?
That's exactly it, because it just becomes part, of course it's available there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that whole, it's not as old as you think, that transition. My last stop on the corporate train, I left there in 2017. When I started at this company in 2014, we had a major initiative to move customers from on-prem to the cloud. This is 24, so like 10, 11 years ago. Like that's not that it's long. It's not that long ago. I want to address a question if I can.
Yeah.
So
yes.
There it is. So, so I didn't finish. This is a great segue to get me back to that hierarchy of clarity. I think ICP's influence, the ICP has a major influence on your message clarity, a major influence, because again, this is two-way. It's, I want them to understand what I'm saying. I want my ICP to understand me. To do that, I have to understand my ICP. This is about being perfectly understood. So going back to the hierarchy of clarity, it's clarity of product, clarity of audience, clarity of problem, clarity of outcomes. So outcomes is what happens. This is, and it's not just think like a philosopher, which is looking at all possibilities. what happens? What happens when they have a problem and they don't fix it? What happens when they have a problem and they fix it this way or this way or this way or this way? What happens when they have the problem and they fix it with us? What happens? So what are the circumstances? What are the business effects of that problem? Of the business effects of that problem? What are the impacts of all those business effects? So when I say business effects, I mean small things like, I don't know, if I'm trying to use if I'm using spreadsheets, this is still a thing, which blows my mind. If I'm using spreadsheets to keep track of, here, let me paint the picture for you. Let's say that I'm an air conditioner company, right? I sell air conditioner units, HVAC company. I sell air conditioner units. I service them. I have a fleet of techs. If my techs are using paper and then they bring stuff back and I put it into a spreadsheet, that's a problem. Why is that a problem? It's a problem because there are errors in data. Okay, so what's the impact in the errors in data? Well, we might have addresses wrong. If we have addresses wrong, our guys don't show up to the right place, or they're late. If they're late, that pisses off the customer. They're going to go to a different HVAC provider. And it's thinking of all of these outcomes, all of these possibilities. This is a massive thing. It's not, like I said, it's not easy. It's simple. It's not easy. So outcomes, looking at it that way. So what are all the outcomes of the problem? What are the outcomes of solving the problem in all these different ways? What's the business effect? What's the impact? So the impact of all of those things is I churn customers. That's an impact. So after outcomes is the top of the pyramid, which almost no one I've found ever does, which is clarity of feeling. This is the emotion. This is 100% ICP. This is looking at the world 100% from your audience's perspective. This is why true audience research is so, so important. And I will wave that flag forever. It's the key to killer copy is getting inside the head of your audience, knowing what makes them tick, what they love, what they hate, all of that stuff. But then also understanding all of that in the context of that entire pyramid. So when they have that problem, what are the emotions? How do they articulate those emotions? When they solve that problem but do it the wrong way, what are the emotions? What's the lingo? How are they talking about that? When they solve it with you, what are the emotions? What's the lingo? You can find a lot of this stuff without, well, first, you should always be talking with your market. You should always be having conversations, always be interacting. It's the only way to truly know your audience and become your audience. Wow, that's another thing I could talk about, becoming your audience. That's another concept altogether. But anyway, to answer your question, Sush, it's hugely important, and your ICP should have a major influence on your message, on message clarity too, because again, we want to attract them. So it's always be thinking, is what we are saying, is it saying it in the right way that's going to get my ICP to say, oh, that's interesting, I want to read more about that. Oh, that's interesting, I want to dive deeper in that. It's also diving into buyer journey and path to purchase and all that stuff, and understanding how your audience buys. And then truly, my stuff works really well actually all throughout the buyer journey, but I love the front end stuff, the unaware we have a problem audience. I know we have a problem, but I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Oh, wow, I've identified this problem and I need to understand all the different ways to solve it. But this plays really well there. It also, for clarity, plays really well on the back end, the why us. All right, so what makes you special, AssetMule? Sush, what you sell, what makes that special to your audience. It's not what makes it special in a vacuum. It's not why is this different in a vacuum. It's why is it different for this audience. So ICP should have a major influence on your message, and you should be doing message clarity work on your audience.
I have a sort of tag along question to that. So how do you manage message clarity when you have multiple personas in your audience? So just to go back to the AssetMule example that we talked about earlier, the problems, right? The product marketer has the problem of being overwhelmed and constantly request for these assets. So there's a message there around like enable your sales team while staying on brand and on message and all that stuff. The salesperson is struggling with like, how do we deliver the assets to the right assets to the buyer at the right time quickly? And then the C-level folks or the leadership, as you pointed out, struggle with this tension between product marketing or marketing and sales. And there's messages that we can speak to each of those. How do we do that?
Well, I love this question. This reminds me a lot about how I first started doing this whole message clarity thing, which is when I started out doing this, I used to write a book, really, a messaging guide for myself. And anytime I'd start at a new company, always in product marketing, the way I'd start to learn the product is I'd start with all of the features first, get really deep on the most granular, on all the features, especially the most granular ones. And I'd answer the 3 questions and I'd write it out. What is it? What does it do? Why does it matter? I talk to developers. I talk to product people. I talk to salespeople. I talk to customers. I want to understand the perspectives. Then once I understand all the features, it was like, okay, how am I going to bucketize these? How am I going to organize these? And it became a taxonomy project. I'm getting to your answer. This is a long tangent. So it's like, oh, okay, all of these are integration. All of these are mobility. All of these are blah, 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 right? So then I'd say, okay, what is it? Mobility, integration, what is it? What does it do? Why does it matter? So now I have understanding and a narrative, a story for each of those buckets. Now all of a sudden, I know all the buckets within this product. Let's answer it for the product itself. What is it? What does it do? Why does it matter? And now every answer goes, it's a map. So if I'm a salesperson and I hear something in a step back, years later, I started using it as sales enablement on product training and how to talk about the product, how to pick up on things in meetings, that sort of thing. So a salesperson now hears something that someone says about mobility, I know exactly where to go, what to say. I'm right there. And it maps because we have the high level and then everything falls down from it. Or you can look at it, you can flip it, say, okay, now we have the foundation and anything I say is going to grow from it. It's the same exact thing for multiple audiences. We're not talking about multiple features now. We're talking about multiple audiences. So I want that foundational message. Think of that as a brand message. What's the brand message? I want that foundational message. And then, okay, well, how does that apply for the product marketer? How does that apply for the sales leader? How does that apply for the tech founder? You know, because I see utility in what you got for that too. So it's understanding then that brand message, and then how does that brand message, how do we tweak that or add to that so that get more granular so that this person gets it in their world and this person gets it in their world. This is why what I said before, especially why does it matter? The why does it matter is gonna change. It's gonna change with different audiences unless it's the high level brand one. The high level brand one has to be an umbrella. It has to be that either. I always struggle with what to call it, the umbrella or the foundation. I like the foundation better, but I think we'll understand the umbrella more.
Awesome. Well, Zach, thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciated. this was awesome. I feel like we can continue to talk shop here. Maybe we got to do another session.
Oh, I'm in. I love these things. This is so fun.
Awesome.
This is so fun. Hey, if anyone out there, and you two also, if you'd like to have a deeper conversation on message clarity, I call it my way of giving back to the product marketing community and to founders. I run conversations. It's a free conversation. I'm not going to pitch you. It's every Wednesday. It's 30 minutes. It's one-on-one. You can sign up for it at clarityrules.com. See if I can pop it and join the chat. Check it out.
Yeah. Why don't you add it on the comments on the actual page?
Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's
Perfect.
what I'll do.
Yeah, so
clarityrules.com. And I can answer your questions. We can dive into one of your messaging questions and we can go through it. Also, if do you mind if I promote something else?
Go ahead.
So tomorrow I'm going deeper on message clarity with the Product Marketing Alliance on the Positioning, Messaging, and Storytelling Summit. I'll pop a link in there too. I speak at 3:15 Eastern, 12:15 Pacific. I have about 45 minutes, and I'm going to go a lot deeper than we were able to do today. It's a lot less of back and forth and a lot more of just sharing the theory, showing examples, diving in.
Nice. And I was going to ask you, what are the best places to follow you? So there's obviously this webinar tomorrow that you mentioned, but more like on an ongoing basis. So you're active on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is probably the best. Also on LinkedIn, if you know that little link they have under your name, under my name, you can sign up for my newsletter. I send that out more or less every week. I've taken a couple weeks off. Just been doing some travel lately, but I have a new email coming out this weekend. I send them out on Sundays, messaging tips pretty much every week. So you can sign up there or at zachmessler.com.
Awesome. And the last question I have for you. So you mentioned you just been on some trips. You just went on a bourbon trail, I think you said, right?
I did.
What was your favorite bourbon that you tasted along the way?
No, it's not. That's not a hard one at all. So I took my daughter on this trip. Her 21st birthday was about a year ago, and she just graduated from school, had some health stuff she got past. So it was like this big celebratory milestone type trip. And so we went to a bunch of different distilleries. We did a single barrel experience at Bardstown, which was awesome. But our guide took us to a vintage whiskey bar in Louisville called Neat. And Neat, I mean, this place was nuts. We had a Blanton's from 1991, a 16-year-old Blanton's, which was good, really good. We had a 1982 special edition Maker's Mark 101 that was insane. I used that for the Friday Post a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
And then the best whiskey that I had on that entire trip was and it blew my mind that this was so good. It was a 1993 Wild Turkey 8-year, which was just, they call them, so in bourbon circles and whiskey circles, they call those old Wild Turkeys Dusties. The Dusty Turkeys, that's what they call them, Dusty Turkeys. And man, the bartender was like, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Like, some people can't stand this stuff. I said, okay. So my daughter and I each had a little bit. I have my whiskey glass here. I had a little bit. And oh my gosh, it was so sweet. So much vanilla on it. Just no burn at all. So smooth. It was insane. So that 1993 Wild Turkey 8-year was just, that was it for me. That was nuts.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us today, sharing your wisdom, and I hope that one day we can meet in person and share whiskey together.
Yeah, amen, man. That would be super fun.
Awesome. All right, Zach. Well, thanks again. Thanks everyone for joining today, and we'll be back probably next week, I think, with another office hour, which we'll announce our guest soon. But
I know your guest. I'm excited for that one. That's a good one.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Take care.